The thing that probably shaped me the most was back in, I think it's 2003. I was in Dallas, Texas, giving a speech to the International Association of Chiefs of Police. We just became ICE less than a year earlier. They took customs and immigration, made ICE. So I was there to explain this new agency and how we can work together and collaborate. I remember getting an emergency phone call from Washington, D.C. John Morton, who was the director at the time, but was actually his deputy, was adultery, called me and says, hey, you're in Dallas. You need to get down to Victoria, Texas right away. There's a tragedy down there, and we want you to go down there and take over the investigation. Because they knew, at the time it was assigned headquarters, they knew I spent most of my career, as I said, in alien smuggling and trafficking cases. So they flew me down there in an Air Marine plane, and I landed down at the crime scene. When I got there, the sheriff, and I think it was a Texas Ranger, walked me through the crime scene. Okay, I said, okay, it's yours. So I remember walking up to there's a tractor trailer. There was 19 people baked to death in the back of that tractor trailer.
19 people?
Baked to death, died.
Baked?
Baked. They're in a steel box, tractor trailer. Steel box, black, no air, in the middle of summer. And so I get up to the crime scene. I walk up to the crime scene right away. There's just the trailers there. The truck's gone. He unhooked it and he left, the driver. So I walk up to the crime scene, and all I have is a suit. I'm wearing a suit. I was giving a speech. I left. I didn't get back to the hotel and get my stuff. I went straight to the scene. So I get there, and I walk up to this tractor trailer. Right away, I see several bodies on the ground, because when those doors finally opened up, the people were such a rush to get air that they knocked some dead bodies out of the truck onto the ground. So I know some dead bodies on the ground there. Then I got to the back of the tractor trailer, and I looked in the back of the tractor trailer. I just see dead people. Most of them in their underwear, because they were trying to get some relief from the searing heat. And right away, so I looked at, I keyed on a little boy. And he was partially covered up by who later found out was his father, who was protecting him. And I keyed in on him. And he was wearing the same color underwear that my little boy had. Same underwear. And I had a 5-year-old son at the time. So right away I keyed in on him. So we had, so I took over the investigation. U.S. Attorney Houston flew in, and a helicopter and came to the crime scene. But when I was processing the crime scene, we had a guy taking pictures, and I was telling him to take all these pictures, what I needed. But I told him that we would do the boy last, and mainly because I couldn't handle it at the time. So we processed the crime scene, and I testified to this. And I got angry when the testimony was someone claimed I didn't care about dying children. He should have worn my shoes. I've seen a lot of dying children, dead children in my career. So when we got to the child, I knelt down beside him. I put my hand on him, and I said a prayer, because I knew, based on the years I've done alien smuggling investigations, what a horrible, horrible death this child went through. He baked to death. And after we crime scene photos, of course, the investigation, where I'm there on the ground, they had to fly clothes in. Again, I came up with clothes on my back. But through the investigation, we found out the little boy was the first one to die. And the witnesses there that survived said that little boy begged his father not to let him die. The little boy knew he was dying. Begged his father, please don't let me die. I want to see mom again. I want to see my mommy. And when you hear the testimony from the surviving witnesses, it just tore you up. How this child, no 5-year-old should have to beg for his life. No 5-year-old should be baking to death in a black box that got up to 175 degrees, they said. And he was the first one to die, and his father died on top of him, because some of the witnesses were saying that some of the members of the group back there talked about tearing the boy apart and putting him out through there's brake lights. They busted out, trying to get some air. And there's some talk about maybe we put parts of the boy out there to draw attention to our problem. That never got fully vetted, because some witnesses said it didn't happen. But his father did die on top of his child, and it just hovering him. And you think about, I just don't think about
rip this boy apart.
That was
body parts.
testimony from a couple of them people. Now a couple people said that wasn't true, but there's a reason. The father was over the top of him like this. We asked why. Anyway, Jawa was the first one to die. Then so many people were starting to die, and there's so many people in back of the tractor trailer. They were dying standing up and trying to find a place to fall. And like I said, when we got the crime scene, most of them in underwear trying to get some relief from the heat. So through that investigation, the first couple of weeks, I'm listening to this testimony, and I just don't think about, okay, that child died. I'm thinking about how he died, what his last 2 hours was like, what was his last hour like. His father couldn't help him. His father put him in that position, begging his father to help him. His father can't. They're in a steel box, locked in a steel box. No air in there. The air compressor was turned off. And the information was it was turned off because he wanted to draw attention to the truck. Because if the truck's empty, going through a checkpoint, if the air conditioning on, that means you got something back there. So there's a lot of testimony from a lot of different witnesses saying a lot of different things. But the way that child died, and I didn't sleep for a week down there. I'm a pretty tough guy, but that affected me. Because I had a 5-year-old son at the time, and you started thinking about, why is my son lucky and that child wasn't? Why is my son born in the greatest nation on earth and this child wasn't? And so, and I've been honest about that. After we put all 14 of those people in jail, anybody involved, they're in prison. And we shut that investigation down pretty quick, put a lot of people in prison. And after the investigation was done, I had to go get help because I couldn't sleep. Just the image of this little boy, how he suffered. And I had a son the same age. That affected me more than anything. Because I realized that didn't have to happen. If we had a secure border, that little child wouldn't have died.